A charity born in 1896 with one clear aim: to protect the future and safeguard our kids. A charity incredibly close to my heart. I'm Penny Lane, and In the Driver's Seat starts now. On a Saturday morning, almost 130 years ago, a group of charity workers and some of Melbourne's most influential leaders gathered together to do one thing: form an organisation to protect our children from abuse and neglect. It was known as the Victorian Society of Prevention of Cruelty to Children. Today, it's called Kids First, and I'm proud to admit that I'm an ambassador for this incredible group. Joining me today is one of the key figures protecting our most valuable resource, our kids. Nicole Artico, welcome to In the Driver's Seat.
Thank you, Penny. Thanks so much for having me and for raising awareness of such an important issue, child safety and wellbeing.
It really is an important issue. Now, how serious is that issue, Nicole, the neglect and abuse of our children?
Look, Penny, I'll start by answering that in this way, which I'm sure you and no one will disagree with me around, is that no child should experience abuse or neglect. No child should lie awake worried for their well-being at night, for that well-being of their siblings or the safety of their parent, predominantly their mother. No child should fall asleep hungry or wondering what they did wrong to cause abuse or neglect, or if they're good enough to be loved. It's unacceptable. Just one child is too serious. But what we know in Australia is that it is extremely serious, the issue of childhood maltreatment. And we know this because in 2023, the Australian Childhood Maltreatment Study was undertaken. And that study randomly surveyed more than 8,500 Australians aged from 16 to over 65 years of age. And it's a first of its kind, and it really looked at the representative rates of 5 types of childhood maltreatment. And what it found was that across Australia, 62% of children, of Australians have experienced at least one form of abuse or neglect in their childhood. So 62% of Australians, from physical, sexual, emotional abuse to neglect or exposure to domestic violence. So it is quite widespread across Australia.
Yeah, so tell me about Kids First and the history of Kids First.
You provided a brilliant intro just then, and you're correct. As of next year, we're 130 years old. And we're quite achievers that have stood the test of time, stood the test of time as standing alongside children, young people and families to create lasting change. We're really fortunate that the society, as you said, the Victorian Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, was formed in 1896. And that was led by Lady Sybil de Vere-Brassey, who was the Governor of Victoria's wife. The organisation's evolved over the last 129 years, but what we've stayed true to is a focus of not removing children from their families and placing them in institutions, which was the focus of when we became the Children's Protection Society in 1971. We've stayed true to improving the conditions of families, increasing parental capacity so children can live safely at home. In 2018, we changed our name to Kids First Australia, and we did that because my predecessors were correct in identifying that we needed to better reflect our commitment to placing children and young people at the centre of all we do. And we affirmed a new vision that children and young people thrive in resilient, strong and safe families and communities. And then apart from that, with Kids First and the phenomenal journey of the last 129 years, in 2023, White Lion Youth, a leading national youth service agency, merged into Kids First Australia. And that's where, you as an ambassador joined us as well, Penny, that we're exceptionally fortunate to have our ambassadors and our patrons and our members as well. But, so under the Kids First Australia banner, we continue a proud legacy of breaking cycles of disadvantage and a commitment to improve the life trajectories of children and young people across Australia.
What I love about Kids First is the fact that you try and keep families together. Having been a foster mum for so many years and seeing kids ripped out of families when really the families just need a little bit of support, it's not always the case that it's the right thing to take the children away. And you actually do that at Kids First. It's all about keeping the families together and the early intervention. Can you tell us a little bit more about the things that you offer and you do for these families and children?
Yes, sure, certainly can. So you're 100% right there, Penny. We start with families. You know, it's the kids first way. We look at improving parental capacity as one of the most critical things we can do to increase the safety and wellbeing of children. You know, the social and environmental conditions in which a child is conceived and raised has a direct impact on their development, on their health, their physical, their cognitive development. So we provide a range of services across Kids First, from early years education to providing youth mentoring support for young people, educational support for young people, all the way through to family services and healing and recovery programs for victim survivors of abuse.
Yeah, amazing. And how did you get involved?
How did I get involved? So this has been my life and my passion for over 20 years, working in the community service sector. But there was really a key moment for me about where I realised I was, my purpose and my goal was to support and help people. And that was when I had some culminating things in my childhood that resulted in me being a little bit lost in my youth. I dropped out of the tertiary education in the first year, and I was working as a part-time service station attendant, and I had no idea of who or what I was and what I was going to do with my life. And this moment was, I still remember I was sitting on my couch at home just watching the TV, and an advertisement came on for the Australian Army Reserves. And why I clearly remember this moment is because it was the first time I recalled having that gut feeling or that intuition that I was drawn to helping or protecting people. So I went off, I joined the Army Reserves, I went off for 7.5 weeks and did the recruit school, the recruit course, and was in the Army Reserves. And then at 21, I fell pregnant with my son, which was one of my first, amazing events in my life. And so at 21, I found myself as a single mum, living back at home with my mum. It still took me a little while to get myself together.
But I ended up still a baby.
I was still a baby, yes. 21 is still considered a young person as well. And so I was then... went back to uni, and I was fortunate to do a student placement out of uni where I was a youth worker. And that led to me getting employment as a youth justice worker. So look, I've had a multitude of opportunities in government and not-for-profit sectors over the last 20 years in a variety of different types of services, from community mental health to disability. But, I see myself as exceptionally privileged for meeting, supporting, being trusted by some amazing children, young people and adults. And, my personal and professional driver has always been ensuring the safety and wellbeing of children and young people. And that's why, the last 5 years now I've been at Kids First, and why I am here and will stay here is because I know I can truly achieve that with Kids First as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You've achieved so much. How do you go about achieving your goals now, every day, like protecting valuable children? Where do you start? Like, how does your day go?
Oh, it's different every day, as I would imagine yours is. But when we look at Kids First, and sort of one of the key drivers for how we protect children and ensure their safety and well-being, where we have a particularly strong focus is in the first 2,000 days of a child's life, from pregnancy all the way to 5 years of age. That the research and the evidence shows time and time again that utero experience of a baby, followed by their life experience as a child, can predict their social, emotional, physical and cognitive health trajectories. So for Kids First, when we're trying to achieve our goals of increasing child safety and wellbeing, that's where increasingly we are focusing our time and energy to have a proactive approach to the safety and wellbeing of children.
Yeah, and what are the key drivers of abuse and neglect now in children in 2025?
That's a complex question, and because there's a multitude of systemic, social and individual factors that contribute to child abuse and neglect in Australia today. There's socioeconomic disadvantage, the cost of living in Australia being the number one issue. Plus, then we have on top of that, 1 in 5 households in Australia are experiencing food scarcity.
Yeah.
So then on top of that, we've got, a housing crisis, rising homelessness, shortage of affordable housing, of course, intergenerational trauma and childhood experiences of abuse and neglect, family violence and substance abuse. We know for a child to be exposed to both of those, family violence and parental substance abuse, they're major risk factors for child maltreatment. And then outside of the family violence or domestic violence space, we have significant gender disparities that contribute to abuse and neglect, where studies show that girls are disproportionately affected by sexual and emotional abuse compared to boys. And we have the whole gamut of online exploitation and cyber risks on digital.
So much, isn't there? We're almost out of time. I can't believe it. We've got 60 seconds, I've been told in my ear. If you could do one thing, Nicole, or if you could get Australia to do one thing to help support you and children of Australia, what would it be?
One thing would be what we're doing today. I'm going to give you 2 things in 30 seconds, I promise. But one thing would be that we raise the voice and raise the awareness, exactly what you're doing today, Penny. And then secondly, at a higher level, I would say, this may surprise you, but child safety and wellbeing is not a priority of our National Cabinet. Domestic, family and sexual violence is, women's safety is a priority for the National Cabinet, but not child safety and wellbeing. And it needs to be listed as a national priority to make sure we get a coordinated whole of Australia approach to keeping our children and young people safe.
Amazing. Thank you, Nicole. Now, everybody watching at home, I encourage you, Google Kids First Australia. It is an amazing, amazing charity that's doing so much for our kids in Australia. Nicole, thank you for joining me in the driver's seat.
Thanks, Penny. Take care.
In the driver's seat is brought to you by the Perfect Cosmetics Company. This is Ticker, and we'll be right back.
You're watching Ticker. We'll have more in just a few minutes.